Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear, like the hoodie that my good friend Grant Turner is wearing from the U.S. Olympic trials. GT, how are you, brother?
Doing great, brother. Ready to rock and roll.
We are first name Markless today. Mark is on the train. He did turn in his picks, and as usual, he'll probably be the most right of the three of us. It comes with old age and wisdom. Let's start out quickly, kind of a segue. Your guys' duel. You beat Carney 19-18. We talked about it off the air. I know you want to give a shout out to Carney. They wrestled really well. You know, from what you said, it was a 5-5 duel. And I use that as a segue into saying Arizona State lost to Pitt, and Pitt only had 4 wins, but they had all bonus point wins. I think they had 3 pins and a DQ for stalling. So obviously I'm older than you, but how many times have you seen a team win 4 of the 10 matches and win the duel?
At college, not very often. I mean, that's kind of a crazy stat, but yeah, it happens.
Yeah,
it happens crazily.
Yeah. So Arizona State's in this weird position right now. They lost to Pitt and won 6 of the 10, and then they lost to Princeton, and it didn't really hurt them in the rankings. And that's what people need to understand is team rankings are based on individual matches. So, for example, Glory beat Courtney, but Glory was already ranked above Courtney. Teamer beat Monday, but Teamer was already ranked above Monday. In the Pitt match, McGee beats Philippi. So none of these changed the rankings. They're not wrestling Vasquez right now. The rumor is he's hurt. Rumor is he may not come back this year, which would drop them another point or two because he's ranked like around 15th, give or take. But these guys are not losing matches that are changing their ranking. And I think that was something we haven't really harped on it this year, GT, but in previous years, and I know you weren't part of the show, but you'd watch when you could, we talked about it that for example, if you have 5 national champions, that's going to be 5 number 1 guys, that's going to be 100 points in the rankings, 520s. You're also, if you have 5 guys that absolutely suck, you're probably going to lose every duel because your 5 guys aren't going to pin every single time. So I think at this point, it sort of bears that. And I guess as a guy who's a coach, a guy who's on a coaching staff that's won like 100 duels in a row, something literally insane like that, right?
I think it's like 112 or 113 now.
Yeah, it's sad that I said 100 and I'm shorting you.
Those are hard fought W's, man.
Bro, I feel you. I'm saying like that's crazy. But then also as a team that's been incredibly successful in tournaments, and your tournament world's a little different because you get to bring your best 12. So by definition, you have to have depth. But we talk about this all the time. When you think about tournaments versus duels, and like, what do you think is the better representative of who has a great team? I'll ask it to you that way.
Well, I mean, I think any time that you have a team atmosphere, dual meets are going to represent the collective body of a team, meaning your little guy's got to be good. Your heavyweight, if it comes down to him, he's got to be good and he's got to be ready. I mean, I think a tournament team or a tournament scoring is individual note based. So if you got a monster, and I'll use this as an example, like David Carr for Iowa State, monster, beast of athlete, national champion. The rest of the Iowa State team that one year, they had some good dudes, maybe had some guys fall short of where they were supposed to be at. But like David put the program into a top 15, national ranking based off of his performance alone.
It's the same way this year. I pulled up the team rankings as you're talking to support your point. Their average rank is 31 points, and David's 20 of them. Minnesota.
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It's crazy how that works, right? Is
Yeah.
that like you can have one dude be a program maker or breaker, and all of a sudden, like, you're a top 15 program because you got one dude that is just a beast. But even if you have one dude that's a beast, and maybe he's a beast, but he's ranked third, maybe then you're outside of the top 25. Because he might not always be getting W's all the time. So I think it's a catch on both ends, because the tournament point scoring kind of validates those individuals to be very, very, very weighted.
Yes.
Especially with like bonus points and all that other stuff. But a true team with depth and being able to recruit everybody kind of shows where a program could be as far as, a team, I would say team atmosphere.
I'll do some math nerd stuff. A person that wins the nationals is guaranteed 20 points, 16 plus 4 advancement, 20. If you make the round of 12, you're guaranteed 2 points based on advancement, whether you won 2 on the front and then drop in the back, or whether you come through the back. It all works out the same. So if Team Turner has Grant Turner, who's number 1, and the 9 dwarfs, and my team has 10 guys that make the round of 12, we're tied. Okay. My team is going to kill your team in a dual meet. Okay. And I would probably, like, if all my guys are ranked 9 through 12, if I had to pick a team that's going to do better, I'd probably pick my team, because you're the only guy and you can't do any better, right? Like David Carr's a massive favorite. Gable Stevenson's probably the most massive favorite, I would think,
right,
of anybody this year. And so, like, if you look at them, Minnesota's down at 36 points because Brayton Lee lost a modal and that kind of stuff. But he's 20 of the 36 points. So 9 guys are scoring 16 and he's scoring 20. Now, this is not new. This has always been the case. But I think it's just important when people start looking at this. And then I'll say one other thing, and then we'll kind of dip into the rankings, because we're down here like at 20 with Wisconsin. So perfect example, Wisconsin beats Minnesota. They haven't beat Minnesota in forever. Huge win. Shout out to Bono, Reeder, Gross, all those guys. Congratulations. Well done. And even Minnesota posted like a tip of the cap Twitter post. But Minnesota is still 15 points above Wisconsin. And really, the difference is Gable. Like, if you take Gable off that team, they're the same teams in terms of points. And so I always make this statement. I'd be interested in your opinion, and then we can dip into the rankings. I believe in tournaments, your best guys decide who wins, or girls or women. And in dual meets, your worst athletes decide who wins. Because, like, I can just not get pinned. Like, if I'm wrestling you and I just get majored, don't even get tech. Like, that's a difference between 4 and 6, and that can make the difference. Or if 2 of us kind of suck, well, one of us is going to win. One of us is going to score. That's a 6-point swing, right? Like, if you're ranked 30th and I'm ranked 31st and we're both going to go 0-2 at nationals, one of us is going to go plus or minus 3 in the dual meet. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I think from personal, like, coaching and then also athletic, in my career, I saw it a ton during, coaching at Grandview, and then wrestling at Iowa State is, once again, you can survive a lot of duels by, kind of having your studs be studs. But if those guys end up having tight matches and all of a sudden you're almost thinking that they're going to get a major almost every single time they go out there, or bonus points in general, and they only get 3, it's hard to overcome that if you're whatever 74 pounder is always getting pinned. It's like, well, then you got to have all of your studs step up, because the Arizona Pitt situation can happen if those guys come out and pin or get some momentum going. So it's I think it's drastically different at college when you have a 10 weight scenario versus a high school duel at 14 weight classes.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have high school, it's very much more apparent. Like, because if you don't have studs all over the place, you can get pinned, and all of a sudden you're like, we can't overcome that. Or if you have spot like roster spots that are just blank, like, well, hey, we don't have a 220 and we don't have a 13 pounder.
Yeah.
Then you're already down 12.
Yeah. And then in a normal scenario, you have to get 4 wins to make that up, right? Like 4 decisions. So I think most wrestling people maybe, I mean, I think we all sort of know that, but I think the math of it is always interesting to give perspective. So, all right. So Mark is not on, but he did put some highlights on here that we were going to do some buy or sells. So these are the rankings as of this week. Want to give a shout out to Christian Thompson over at fantasygrade.com. He always puts these together for us. Mark always puts the team rankings together for us. So shout out to those guys. They just let me and GT be the eye candy on here. I almost got that out with a straight face.
Yeah, almost completed it.
Almost stuck the landing. So anyway, so first thing that Mark said, which I think is a sell, is Master Giovanni is the number 5 guy versus the field. And his point, GT, is it really feels like Suriano, Arujau, Glory, and Courtney feel very solid that those will be the top 4 guys. I mean, maybe a better way to ask it is, who do you think is the best of the rest? I'll ask it to you that way.
Oof. Well, I mean, I think, what was it? Barnett just beat McKee. So that's probably why McKee's a little bit further down as, you know, the reigning, I think, bronze medalist. And then Drew Hildebrandt coming into focus here with being at Penn State.
And he had a close win against Rutgers. Like, he barely won that match. Like, it was going into overtime, and he was going to go into overtime having not scored a takedown. He had 2 escapes, and the other guy had a takedown to pick neutral.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, based out of all of the guys left, you know, I think McKee poses a big problem for a lot of people. I'm kind of high on him because I think he just has proven himself a little bit. He's also in the Big Ten, which is going to give him a better shot at, you know, qualifying for nationals and then potentially having a pretty good seeding location. Just because if you look at the Big Ten, you know, we got Wisconsin, Penn State, Minnesota, Northwestern, Iowa, all in a row.
Yeah.
So, and then not too far shot out of there is Schroeder, who's also a beast, who dropped a little bit further because of a few losses here. But I think McKee is probably the best of that next tier. But I mean, all those guys deserve to be where they're at right now.
Yeah, none of these rankings in my mind are way off. Like, I don't understand why Flo has Cardinale at 11. Like, that's kind of wonky to me. But it really just pulls him below Mastro. Like, if you look at that, he's 1 ahead of Mastro in 3 of the 4, and then Flo's is the statistical outlier. I will take this one. Mark said buy or sell. DiAgostino is an All-American, and I'm going to buy. I think he's just not he's not top 10 yet because he just hasn't wrestled any matches, you know, but he looked good against Ayala, and, you know, the Big Ten is going to be super fun at that weight. All right, 33. Yeah. So Foley loses to Hudkins. And I only point this out because generally when guys are fairly close to each other, you rank the guy that just won head-to-head above. And again, 2 of the sources did that. Hudkins isn't even ranked by one source. And again, Flo's got Hudkins 7 below. Now, it doesn't mean Flo's wrong. Sometimes it's a body of work thing, right? Like, you could be 9-0 and I could be 5-4, and you could be beating me 14-0, and I reach back and defensive pin you like last weekend. Now you're 9-1, I'm 5-5. I probably shouldn't be ranked above you. Like, you know, for all the reasons that are very clear in that scenario, you know, record and how we got to that result. And I'll make you a promise, if I even in my sleep dream about defending pinning you, I will text you and apologize. Just so you know. So hey,
listen, all dreams can turn to nightmares real quick.
You can come get some. You can come get some whenever you want it.
Absolutely.
So I think the interesting thing here is, I'll set the table. Are Foley and Hudkins legit All-American candidates? And I will just point out, DeSanto is a huge question mark. I want to get your opinion on what's going on with that and Schreiber getting his red shirt pulled. Lucas Bird hasn't wrestled a lot this year. Ragason's been up and down. So let's start with the DeSanto Schreiber thing. What do we know there? Do we know anything?
No, I think that there's a lot of noise around it. I don't think that there's anything that's been really proven or said or confirmed. I just think that maybe AD is going through some stuff, or, maybe he's, just a little maybe wear and tear on his body. But I can't neither confirm any of those statements, but I think he's going to be just fine. That's my own personal opinion. I think he's just taking a little bit of time for himself, and maybe they're using Schreiber kind of see where he's at. And, if he comes out and does really well, maybe it's injury related, and maybe AD's trying to push through it a little bit. And they're like, well, for right now, we don't really have a better scenario at 33 than Schreiber. So I think there's just a lot of noise with no confirmation.
There's definitely smoke. I don't know if there's fire, but there's definitely smoke, right? Like, you could argue in that duel, you were probably going to win. Maybe you just bump Ibarra up for a match, right? He's already out of red shirt or can't red shirt kind of thing. I think it's interesting, right? So
yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. So, and I guess I skipped this. Foley, All-American, Hudkins, All-American, both, none of the above. What do you think?
I think Foley, because he's like right on the edge, right?
Yeah.
And has been for a while. It wouldn't surprise me if he is, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's not. So
what office are you running for? It's as right on the line as you can get.
It really is, because I think that some of these guys, if you look at where they've been in the past couple of years, where they go to the national tournament, who they beat, kind of their losses, it's just a day-by-day game with some of these guys.
That is probably the most accurate statement anybody can say about any of this stuff. Is in every weight class, there's a group of people, and it can be 5, it can be 12, where on any given day, the bottom guy could beat the top guy. And that can always happen, right? But you wouldn't even be surprised. Like last year at 184, the rankings were so jumbled. Like the guy ranked below had beaten one of the guys above, but it's like everybody had beaten everybody, and it's who won last and all this stuff. So, so speaking of sort of non-jumbled pass, we highlighted Keyshawn Clark here at 41. And here's why. I'll just throw this out there. I think Keyshawn Clark can end up being a top 4, top 5 seed at nationals. And here's why. He's undefeated. Okay. And I think he's going to win the rest of his matches. I haven't looked very closely at their schedule, but nobody in the ACC is going to be a favorite to beat him. Let's just say that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then if you look at everything above him, it's Big 10, Big 10, Big 10, Pac-12, Big 10, Big 10, Big 12, Big 12. Okay. So he's probably going to move ahead of whoever doesn't win the Big 12 for sure, Aliras and Carlson, because he'll have that criteria. He'll have winning percentage, and he'll have conference champion percentage in this scenario. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Real Woods would probably stay ahead of him because he'd be in the same scenario if he can win out, and he's already above him. So he's probably not going to pass him. And he's probably not going to pass Lee, Ironman, Rivera, but I think there's a very realistic chance he bumps to 5. And we had talked about him earlier in the year because he beat Chad Red, right?
Yep.
So that's the other thing. If Chad Red does well at the Big Tens, which would surprise none of us, that dude wrestles in March. Well, Keyshawn Clark's the handcuff to that. He's above him. So am I crazy thinking he can be a top 5, top 6 seed?
No. And the other thing you got to look at is Penn State, Iowa, Rutgers, Illinois, Michigan, Nebraska are all going to beat each other up between now and nationals. They have duels still to be had. They got losses to take. And then they have the Big Ten championships, which then will sort out a lot of maybe the top 4, top 6 within the nation. Because You can't go and get 4th in the Big Ten and then be 3rd in the country in the rankings. Just not possible.
Right.
So then they're going to have to separate that out. And then, you got the Big 12 right there with Aliras and Carlson and Hart and Parker. The Big 12 champ, more than likely going to sneak in there at probably like a 4-5 because, Real Woods is probably going to win the Pac-12. Like just outright. So he's probably be in a top 3, top 4 position unless complete madness happens. And
that's going to be a great point, right? Like if Woods goes undefeated, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if he goes undefeated and it goes Lee, Ironman, Rivera, some order in the Big Tens, right? Does Woods jump to 3? Because if
he very well could.
Yes. And if you want to avoid Lee, who's, got a banged up hamstring right now, that 3 and 4 are a big difference. Obviously 3's on the bottom of the bracket, 4's on the top. So.
Yeah, it could get in this, some madness happens where like Mitic beats Lee and then Ironman loses to Duncan and then all of a sudden that goes upside down. And then you're like, well, we'll let somebody a lot smarter than both me and Mark sort that out.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The gentleman. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Cole Matthews, just pointing out, I think he will end up. Mark's thing was, do you think he ends up losing in the round of 24? And I don't. I think he'll make the round of 16 or better. He's an upside guy. I mean, he could, he's like all these guys. He's in that whole mix, right? This is that level we're talking about, right? Like Ryan Jack is 16 and Carter Young is 25. Or even like McGonigal at 15 or Grant Willits. Okay, so like this is a perfect example. If you told me Carter Young beat Dresden Simon, I wouldn't be shocked. And Dresden Simon went 7-6, I think, with Ironman earlier this year.
Yeah.
So just crazy levels here. Okay, 49. Okay, so this is interesting. I think this probably bears an obvious explanation. The questions are going to be, do we think Gomez and or Yaya are going to be All-Americans? If you do, I think what it says is we have to say 2 of the guys above them are not going to be All-Americans. So what do you think? Gomez, yes or no? Yaya, yes or no?
I mean, I love Gomez. I think he's a beast. He can beat any one of these guys all the time, like, because he's got just firepower coming out. I just want to see him get through the season. I want to see him get through the season healthy. I want him to be ready for the postseason. And then I think, put him into a national tournament. I think he does pretty well. Yaya had a great tournament last year, but that also didn't include some of the guys that are in this bracket.
But he beat good guys. Like he beat Mahler, who's not in the bracket, but certainly would be, right? He lost close to Sasso. I think he beat Boo. But your point's well taken, and he placed ahead of Parco. Yeah.
I mean, I think in each year to year, you gotta prove it again, right? So then like Yaya loses to Gomez. I'm not sure of any of the other losses that Yaya has currently.
He lost to Sasso for sure at Vegas. I can't remember if he took 3rd or not, but you're right. Yeah.
Perfect. I mean, Murin poses a lot of problems for people. Jaden Abbas is looking pretty dang good lately. I mean, there's the 18th fine silver that's available as well. So
those guys are provosts, the 2.
Yeah, I mean, at some point in time, you got to put that one of the fine silvers in admissions. And just continue to recruit, man.
I think this is kind of the point too when you look at these kind of questions. Part of it is who's above them? Who could you see not placing, right? And so I think the easiest thing to pick is a guy that hasn't placed before. So Ridge Lovett hasn't been top 8. Milner hasn't been top 8. Andonian hasn't been top 8. Heil hasn't been top 8. That's not saying I do or don't believe in them. That's just simply math. And Tariq is up a weight. So, like, it's not like he's been thumping dudes at 49 his whole career. He went from 33 to 41 and now 49. So I think that is probably the strongest argument for a Gomez or a Yaya or an Abbas or a Murin or the law firm of Feinsilver and Feinsilver and Feinsilver. So any of those. Yeah.
For sure.
For sure. All right, 57. Okay. So O'Connor and Teamer, Teamer is 3 here. O'Connor's 4. I just wanted to point this out that, everybody, Flo has O'Connor above Teamer, and I don't understand why. And I really don't understand. I mean, because Teamer's undefeated. I get O'Connor's really good and placed higher last year. It was at a different weight. Every week we talk about last year goes more and more in the rearview mirror. And I know O'Connor probably only has 1 loss, but he lost to Peyton Robb, who's actually behind him. So I just wanted to highlight that. I don't know if we need to talk about this because I want to leave some time to do our picks for Michigan, Penn State. But Wyatt Sheets, Caleb Young are off the All-American top grid, and I think those guys are definite threats. Okay, 65. So I talked to my friend Jason McLeod, who's out there running, doing fundraising for Arizona State. He told me this. I'm going to get the order wrong, maybe. Valencia, the next 3 weekends, wrestles Evan Wick, wrestles Keegan O'Toole, and wrestles Shane Griffith. So Valencia is either going to be the #1 guy in the country, have 3 losses, or somewhere in between. But if he wins those 3 matches, he's #1.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for sure. I don't care what Marinelli does. Like strength of schedule and all that other stuff. Like, that's too much. And the crazy thing is, this is the best the Pac-12's been at a weight in years. Like, unbelievable. They got 3 top 7 guys here. So, and then Marinelli Karchla should happen tomorrow night. We're recording this on Thursday. It'll probably go up Friday. So I'll say it should probably happen tonight. But I mean, that's assuming everybody wrestles. I'm going to kind of fly through these because I want to get our picks in. I want to have time. Hamity is climbing at 65. Wenzel is falling. Interesting that a guy that started our #2 is #11. 74, we didn't see anything really life-shattering. 84, we want to point out Caleb Romero is 7 and lost in overtime to Amin. And that tells you how close that weight is. So just something to keep in mind. And it was like a 3-1 match with some unbelievable scrambles. 97, Woodley's an All-American who's at 11. Dupre is an All-American that's at 14. And those guys are off the board. And then we just wanted to put out that Mark Ostrander's adopted son, Lucas Davison, is at #12 and climbing. I think he was one of the guys when we did our off the board picks at the beginning of the year. So I would like to point out that Gas Tank Gary is sitting right where I need him to be, just right in that All-American round, that blood round, getting ready to sneak one. So.
Hey, big shout out to my NDSU Bison guys. They're still relevant. Luke Weber, Jared Franick. Those are my outside picks. I had 2 NDSU guys back to back. They're sitting right where I need them to. Those guys are beasts. So,
yeah. And Owen Pence pinned Buchanan.
Yeah. Another Bison guy that's just rocking out right now.
Yes. So, but that's an example. 32 pinned 3 or 31 pinned 3, something like that. I don't know where's Penn. Pence moved up, obviously. Yeah, he moved up to 8 to 21. And Buchanan dropped to 6. So, which helped Iowa this week. So, that's interesting. Okay. So, all right, let's go. We talked about the team rankings. We'll touch on these quickly. It feels like the tiers are becoming more distinguished. GT, Penn State, 114, Iowa 91, Michigan 81, and Oklahoma State, Arizona State in that 60s range. And then VT up to NC State are kind of all one finalist apart from each other. Minnesota dropped out of that tier, and I intentionally highlighted them that way. And Northwestern dropped out of that tier based on what happened to Yaya and to, I think, DiAgostino, maybe. I mean, there's somebody else. I can't remember, but they got a bunch of guys in that round of 12 now that if they all scored, they'd be like at 38, 39 points, and they'd be in the top 10. So, but of course, everybody's got stuff like that. Okay. So here we go, GT. I don't know if you're looking at the screen.
Yep.
2 duels. I don't know if we're going to get through both of them. Okay. I've got Mark's picks here. We got, so Mark's picks are.
Yeah. So did Mark already do his picks? And we're just going to fill them in as we're going?
Yes. He texted them to me this morning. So
okay, awesome.
I got to get them here. Let's see. All right. So Mark's got Michigan at 25. He's got Penn State at 33. He's got Penn State at 41. He's got Penn State at 49. He's got Michigan at 57. He's got it depends on if Amin wrestles. That's his pick, which I think is fair, I'm okay with that. Like Michigan at 74, which is a huge upset. Penn State at 84, Penn State at 97, and Michigan at heavyweight. He's got a 15-15, all decisions.
Okay.
So what I did was highlight who's ranked higher.
Got it.
Okay. So Michigan's ranked higher in 4 weights. Penn State's ranked higher in 6 weeks. We don't know if Nick Lee's going to wrestle. We don't know if Amin's going to wrestle. I mean, we don't know who half these guys are going to wrestle, but we're going to go off of this. So GT, Suriano or Hildebrandt?
I'm going to take Suriano.
And I'm assuming if you don't say anything, these are decisions. Okay.
Yep. I'll just work it as that.
Yeah. I'm going to take RBY as a decision. Sorry, that's the wrong one. You got the same thing?
I got RBY by a major.
Okay. So +1. All right. Nick Lee Misek. You can go first here.
I got Nick Lee if he wrestles.
Yeah, that's agreed. Okay. 49. I'm going to take Bartlett.
I'll take Bartlett.
57.
I'm going to take Luan.
Same. 65.
I'll take
I'm exactly where Mark is on this.
Okay.
I'm exactly where Mark is on this. So I think we all are, right? I think that's fair because it's such a big swing, right? It'd be like picking Iowa. Well, I don't know. Never mind. All right. Starachi Massa. I'm going with the champ. I'm actually, my dad coached Logan Massa's dad, but I'm still picking Starachi.
Yeah, I'll take Starachi as well.
Okay. This got to be like the match of the duel, right? And it's an amazing duel.
Yeah.
So Mark says Amin wins at least one of these matches this year, which is not a stupid bet. You pick a bronze medalist to go 1 out of 3 possibly. Is this the time? Do you have Amin or do you have Brooks?
I'm going to take Brooks now, but I think Amin beats him at Big Tens.
Savage pick. Like, okay. All right. Okay. I'll take Dean.
I'm going to take Dean as well.
And then you got Paris?
No, I'm going to take Kirkfleet.
Uh-oh. Okay. I'll take Paris. All right. So I don't know that we picked. Where's the non-chalky picks? All right. Let's see. We got, all right. This is non-chalky.
Yeah.
And this is non-chalky. Or this right here.
Yep.
So you've got Penn State winning 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, 5.5, 6.5. You have it Penn State winning pretty easily.
Yep.
I've got it basically chalk. I would tell you this, the matches that I think could sort of go the other way. I think Storr can wrestle with Bartlett. Okay, Bartlett's not scoring a lot of points right now. Anybody can win a one scramble match. Obviously the Bergie Amin thing flips, you know, and then I'm really interested to see 74 and 84 in heavyweight. Like, I'm really high on Kirk Fleet. Like, I think I'm higher on him than most guys are. And he beat Paris last year was it at the Olympic trials on the backside, GT?
I can't remember.
But he beat him in freestyle in a real tournament, like a high level USA wrestling tournament, right?
It could have been one of those club things or like one of the like club duel type things. Because I think Paris ended up beating Gwiz at one of those. And then it could have been at trials too.
I think it was trials because I don't think Penn State did any of those because they all wanted him to be on their channel. Like, they weren't going to, you know, yeah.
Yeah, I think they hosted. I mean, because I think Kirkfleet just beat up everybody on the Penn State ones where they had brought up.
Yeah.
But it could have been the Cliff Keen Club one that they did at Penn State. I would have to go back and check.
Right. But he beat Paris in a real event. I think it was a USA Wrestling event. I'm almost positive. And I feel like it was the backside of the Olympic trials.
Got it.
So I'm not saying I'm right, but I just feel like that because I think I remember where I was sitting because I was in that booth when watching that match out of the corner of my eye. But either way, obviously folk style is a lot different. Paris's top game is super legit. Kirk Fleet doesn't seem to ride a lot of high level guys. So the change from free to folk probably favors Paris more than it favors Kirk Fleet. But at the end of the day, if you're better at takedowns, you have a pretty good chance of winning the match. I'm not saying he is, but if he is, it's a smart pick by you guys. Sorry, by you. All right. So I'm not going to go through Iowa, Ohio State like per match, but I just want to think about where can Ohio State get to 5 wins? Let's put it that way. So here's where I think they could. It's not crazy that Heinzelman could beat Ayala, right?
Not crazy, but I don't think it can happen.
I would agree, but if we're trying to get to 5 wins, if we're Buckeyes, that like this is one they got to get, right?
Right, for sure.
They got to get Sasso, right?
Yep.
They got to get I think they have to get Karchlow.
If they want to get to 5, I think so.
And I think they can win 74 and 84, right?
Caleb Romero at 84, and then is it?
Go back here to 74. I'll show you.
Ethan Smith.
Ethan Smith is going to be favored there. You know, well, not favored. I mean, but if Kemmer is not wrestling, I guess that's what I'm thinking. Sorry.
Yep, for sure.
I just seem to lose my mind there. But I mean, like, who knows with Kemmer's health, right? But like, if they're wrestling, you know, somebody different at 74, I mean, obviously it's, you know, here's the thing of the ones we highlighted, they're probably really only favored at 2 of the weights, right? 49 and 84.
Yep.
I mean, Ayala's ranked above Heinzelman. Marinelli's ranked 1 or 2. Yep. So, and then Kemmer's ranked 2, you know? So it's an interesting duel. Like Iowa's, I think, you know, ranked 1 or 2. I mean, in dual meets, I don't know where they got him. And Ohio State 6. I think Flo said it was number 1 against number 6, but I feel like it's number 2 against number 6. And, you know, this duel up here is like number 1/2 versus 3. And I'm not shocked if Michigan wins this duel. I mean, they need Amin to wrestle for sure. Like, I don't think they can win without Amin, right? Like, I think they've got to get that one in. And then I think the other thing is, I'm not sure Nick Lee's wrestling. And if Nick Lee's not wrestling, they win 41. And they probably win by bonus. Like, Misek can bonus Meredith. And then it could be 16-15. And if Mark's right and Massa beats Starachi, that's gigantic. And nothing to say that's not like you go, there's no way in hell that can happen. I will say this. I think he might be the most improved champ from last year.
It'll happen when you're a freshman.
It's a good way to put it. But I mean, like, he just feels like he's continued to level up, you know? So we got like 3 or 4 minutes left. I want to just announce that we are going to do the Michigan Border Brawl this year in like 2 months up in Michigan. Nike's a big part of that, so thank you for that. We just secured our location at the Huntington Place Convention Center. Really cool spot, like 20,000 square foot ballroom. So when we got some great matchups, some guys that have already committed, like Manny Rojas, Gabe Arnold, Josh Barr, Braden Thompson. That's all a one-way class. So other thing, and then we'll get out of here. Marcus Hayne and I are going to do some play-by-play of our own over the top of the Penn State Michigan match tomorrow. So it's going to be, I think, Moscow Mules with Marcus and Mirikitani, because we need enough M's in our lives. So for Mark, who's not here, for GT, I'm David. Thank you guys for watching and listening. See you all next week.